Someone said it to you when your life was falling apart. Maybe at a funeral, maybe in a hospital waiting room, maybe in the quiet of a phone call from someone who genuinely loved you and had no idea what else to say. God won't give you more than you can handle. It felt comforting in the moment. It sounded biblical, and you held on to it the way a drowning person holds on to anything within reach. There is only one problem. It is not in the Bible, not in the way people mean it, not even close. And what Scripture actually teaches about this, what the pattern across Moses, Elijah, Job, and Paul actually reveals, is almost the exact opposite. God does give people more than they can handle, deliberately, repeatedly, and to the people He trusts the most. The question is not whether this is happening to you. The question is, why? And the answer changes everything. The phrase almost always gets traced back to one verse, 1 Corinthians 10:13. Here is what it actually says. No temptation has overtaken you, except what is common to mankind. God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. But when you are tempted, He will also provide a way out so that you can endure it. Read it carefully. Paul is writing about temptation, the pull toward sin. He is promising that no temptation to do wrong will ever be so overwhelming that you have no choice but to give in because God always provides a way of escape. That is a real promise, a powerful one. But it says nothing about grief, nothing about illness, nothing about loss, nothing about the seasons when everything falls apart at once and you feel like you cannot take one more day. Paul is not saying your circumstances will never exceed your capacity. He is saying sin will never be your only option. And here is how we know Paul was not making the first promise. Because he made the opposite statement himself in the very next letter to the same church. 2 Corinthians 1:8-9, written months later, about what he had just survived. We were so utterly burdened beyond our strength that we despaired of life itself. Indeed, we felt that we had received the sentence of death, utterly burdened beyond our strength, despaired of life itself, sentence of death. This is the man who wrote, "I can do all things through Christ." This is the man who sang hymns in prison at midnight. And he is describing a season where the weight was so far beyond what he could carry that he expected to die from it. If God never gives us more than we can handle, Paul's experience should not have been possible. But Paul does not stop there. He gives us the reason for it. But that was to make us rely not on ourselves, but on God who raises the dead. The weight that broke Paul was not a malfunction. It was not abandonment. It was not evidence that something had gone wrong. It was the entire point. Once you see this principle in Paul, you cannot stop seeing it everywhere in Scripture. Moses. Numbers 11. Israel is complaining again, weeping at the doors of their tents, wishing they were back in Egypt, back in slavery, because at least in slavery there were cucumbers. Moses hears all of it, and something in him breaks. He turns to God and says, "I cannot carry all these people by myself. The burden is too heavy for me. If this is how you are going to treat me, please go ahead and kill me now." Moses asked God to kill him. Not in a moment of spiritual weakness. Moses was one of the most intimate with God of any person in human history. He spoke with God face to face the way a man speaks with a friend. And the weight of his calling drove him to ask God to end his life. God did not rebuke him for lack of faith. God appointed 70 elders to share the burden, to come alongside Moses and carry what he could not carry alone. The answer to "too much" was not "you are wrong, you can handle it." The answer was, "You are right. You cannot. Here is help." Elijah. After the greatest victory of his entire ministry, calling down fire from heaven, defeating 450 prophets of Baal, he collapsed under a tree in the wilderness and said, "It is enough. Take away my life." The greatest victory of his ministry led directly to the greatest emotional collapse of his life. God did not rebuke him. God sent an angel twice with food and water and said something that should stop you cold. "Arise and eat, for the journey is too great for you." God said it himself. This is too much for you to carry alone. Job, blameless, upright. God's own words about him. The best example of a faithful human being on the face of the earth. And then Job lost everything. His children, his wealth, his health. His friends arrived to comfort him and spent the rest of the book telling him his suffering was his fault. And the weight became so heavy that in chapter 3, Job cursed the day he was born. He did not curse God, but he cursed his own existence. That is more than a man can handle, by any definition. The pattern is too consistent across too many centuries and too many different people for it to be accidental. God gives more than you can handle, deliberately, to the people he trusts the most. And the reason is always the same. That was to make us rely not on ourselves, but on God. So here is what this means for the season you are in right now. The weight you are carrying, the thing you wake up at 3 a.m. thinking about, the situation that makes you feel like if it doesn't change soon you are not sure what will happen, is not evidence that God has abandoned you. It is evidence that God trusts you enough to bring you to the end of yourself. Because there is a version of your life where you are strong enough, capable enough, organized enough to manage everything on your own. And that version where you never need to look up is the most spiritually dangerous version of your life that exists. The weight is not the punishment. The weight is the mercy. Because the God you are being forced to rely on is the same God Paul described, the one who raises the dead. Whatever has died in your life, whatever feels permanently gone, whatever you have been carrying alone for longer than you should have, is within range of that power. Cast it. Not release gently, not gradually transfer. Cast the way a fisherman throws a net with force, with intention, with the deliberate decision to let go of what was never designed to be held by you alone. 1 Peter 5-7. Cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you. He delivered Paul. He fed Elijah. He appointed 70 elders for Moses. He showed up in the whirlwind for Job. He will deliver you. Stop trying to hold what only he can hold.